welcome back to the Crossroads Calligraphy YouTube channel. My name is Renee, and today I wanted to share my process for transferring guidelines to several different pieces of paper. The project is calligraphy for scrapbook pages that a client is adding some things to. So let me flip the camera. There's lots of different ways to do guidelines, and this is just my process. It works the best for me. I'm a person that likes consistency between the pages in a book. So if that's something that you're into, keep watching. So my client is making a scrapbook for a couple that just got married and I think is expecting a child soon. And this scrapbook has 12 pages of different movie quotes, inspirational quotes, and then some pages are just going to have a caption at the bottom. But the orientation of each quote is different throughout the pages. So I wanted to share how I created a guidelines template so that the text would be similarly placed throughout each page. As you might know, with anytime I have a completed size in mind, I draft guidelines and margins to match that. So what I've done is also trace the holes onto the page because I'm not really factoring those in my workable space. So I actually started the margin to the right of the holes here. And it's a slightly smaller margin because this empty space in between the holes also acts as kind of optical space. So I don't need the margin to be as big because there's still a bunch of empty space here. So again, like I've marked in the 5% margin at the top and sides, so that's a 1/2 inch, and then 1 inch at the bottom. And then I also always mark in the optical center. So I'm using a small Mitchell 6 broad edge nib and italic script for the quotes, and then Romans for the captions. So anytime I go to draft up a page, one, I've done practice calligraphy already, so I know how wide each line needs to be, or I can calculate I can calculate how many lines of text that I will need for each quote. With my Mitchell 6, I created a pen module so I knew how tall to make the letters. So that's what these X heights are. So each of these is going to correspond to a line of text. So no matter what orientation on the page I'm going to have the text, it's going to be that size and at that placement. And across all of them, all pages, the margin is going to be the same. So for this one, for example, we have the text, and what's going to go on the other side is an envelope. And what I've done is I've marked in the margins for my client so they can line up the bottom of the envelope to the margin at the bottom and at the side. So for each page as they flip through, it's going to be cohesive. So what I do is I line up the page to my template that I already traced. So here's the vertical center of the page, and I had actually had it further over, but I did a test and the text was too far to one side. So I said, no, that's not the line to follow, and I remarked the center line here. And I just like to do that to have a point of reference. So when I drew the guidelines for the margins and the text, I extended them beyond the page. So what I do is I tape the page down, and then I use my ruler and I mark in a ruler and a white fabric pencil in this case. And I just mark in very lightly. Like you see them holding the pencil in the middle. I'm not trying to put pressure on it. I just hold it in the middle or even toward the end, pull across, and I just line up all of my ruler to all of my margins. And then for the longer text, I always marked in the optical center, and then I centered the block of text. This is a better example. Then I centered the block of text on the optical center. So here, that's this, and all my lines of text are centered here. Because you always want more space at the bottom of your page than at the top. So all I'm going to do is mark that 1/4 inch of an X height for my Roman capitals using my Mitchell 6. And I'm also going to mark the vertical center because, again, I've already done, and I'm only going to draw lines where I really need them. So I'm just going to mark the middle of the X height. And again, I'm holding the pencil very lightly so the guidelines will be easier to erase. So I'm marking the vertical center because I've already done the practice sizes and marked how wide they are. So now I can, so for example, this one's 4.5 inches wide. So I would just mark half of that amount, the 2 1/4, and I can even measure, I can either measure with the ruler or using my graph paper, 2 1/4 of an inch. And that's going to be my starting point for this particular caption. So then I just make a starting point. So, oh, and then I'm letting these, well, I let these dry overnight, and then I'll use what's left of my little plastic eraser to just erase all the guidelines, except for the margins for my client. Questions, comments, leave them below. I'll just be drawing lines and doing calligraphy. Thanks for tuning in.